All right, so let's get into it. So, Miss Blakely, I want to stop the question. So, with you going to a HBCU, getting your college education at these various institutions, Michigan State, what led you into like education? What led you? Because in reference of even my story, I was not initially wanting to be a teacher, but I ended up being a teacher, and I love it, an educator. But what led you into the profession of like education and careers?
So Wilberforce had what they call a cooperative education program, which is now known as internships and experiential learning. And I actually did a couple of co-ops as a recruiter for the college, recruiting high school students who were considering going to college. So that led to my interest in student affairs, which is the umbrella at colleges where you get all of your support services, career counseling, coaching, you name it, you can find it there. They help you with academic advising. So my first job after I graduated from Wilberforce, after having accrued a year and a half of work experience, I'd done some social work, found out I like helping people, but not necessarily helping them when they're destitute. So I decided to transfer those skills to a college setting. And my first job was, I always said I wanted to work at UC Berkeley. So I worked at UC Berkeley in the Afro-American Studies department, and I was an academic advisor and counselor there for 4 years. And then I made sure I was networking on campus, called in some favors, was referred out to PSE&G, which is a public utility in San Francisco. And I just transferred the skills to become a college recruiter for the gas company. And I had a focus on recruiting minority students. So I went to Howard University. I went to all the Black colleges because they didn't have anybody else on the team that looked like the students. So I would always go and do the recruiting. I did that for several years. And then I moved back to the East Coast, and I continued to work in human resources. And I always worked in an area where I had multiple locations, meaning I was in the field. I would have a headquarters, but I would have multiple locations. So I did that for several years. I always wanted to learn labor relations. So I got labor relations under my belt as a skill set. And then I began to experiencing laying off people. So as an HR professional, you always have to lay people off. And then I got laid off a few times. So I thought maybe this is, it's time to do something else. And I pivoted and transferred those skills to the outplacement management consulting firms of Wright Management and Lee Hecht Harrison. They are now owned by different entities, but they're the big outplacement firms here on the East Coast. And I work with everybody imaginable, all kinds of industries, very senior people, people who worked there all their lives. And of course, what would happen is they show up one day at the office and they say, today is your last day, gather your things and leave now. And then I would get them. And then, of course, they'd be kind of upset, and we'd have to work with them to help them get resumes, interviews. They'd come to the workshops, one-on-one counseling. And then I transitioned into education. And I started out at a fashion school in New York City, which I still teach at. It's a high-end fashion school. And I've been networking with people all along, and they've been coming to my presentations. And someone recommended me for the CUNY job, who had seen me present before. And I've been with CUNY now close to 8 years, doing the internships and the advisement, as well as working with all these different kinds of students, and most of which are it's a very diverse crowd, meaning that, you have all kinds. For some students, it's their first time going to college. So we work on everything imaginable about what it takes to realize your goals. You can have lofty goals, but you have to put the work in. So I spend time with students around in my class. I have 2 classes. It's called Professional Development and Career Planning. And we talk about what's considered professional, what's not. We do your typical resume and interviewing, but now interviewing has changed to virtual. So now we're covering that. We cover social media. And I have them look at scenarios where people have gotten fired for what they've posted. And people are still posting things that are a little bit over the top. And some of the students seem to think that's okay. I explain to them that, because you think it doesn't mean you should say it.
Right.
And I also have them create LinkedIn profiles, which I edit pretty carefully. When we were in class, I would pull them up in class so people could see. And I'd say, so what's wrong with this particular profile? We also cover all the other social media platforms because my students are on most everything that's out there: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can actually get jobs from all these sites, but you have to be consistent in your message, and you definitely need to be careful about what you post. So we cover that, and then the big thing is students will say, "Oh, I want to make $70,000," and they really have no clue about what that's all about. So I spend time with them on helping them understand what the market will bear. They have to research jobs other than in New York City. Get them to understand geographical differentials, meaning if you work in LA versus South Carolina, your pay is going to be different. We talk about what the minimum wage is in New York City. And I tell students, if you need to be paid to internship, do not search for non-paying internships. Only search for paid internships. Then I direct them to the right sites to do that. Do cover letters, but I also have students send a thank you note to someone who's been very helpful to them, because people don't practice good etiquette. And in most cases, when I've done college relations, I could have interviewed 14 students during my entire day, and the only one that sent the thank you note is the one that I actually offered the job because they displayed some follow-up, follow-through, and professionalism. So students still get stuck. They'll create a note about a job, and I clearly say it must be somebody who's been helpful to you over the last 12 months. And yes, I ask them to actually send the note. And it's interesting the kind of responses students get back to me and say they were shocked. I say to them, "Hey, I'd love to get a thank you note instead of a bill. So let's practice that on an ongoing level." Yeah. So we cover lots of things, informational interviews. I know students worry a lot about, "Oh, well, why would they talk to me? What can I offer?" If you frame it correctly, people are willing to talk to you about anything. So if you think you want to be a 2 or 3D animator, you need to find some and reach out to them. And now, of course, you're doing things virtually.
Right.
So that means you need to have the right equipment. You need to be set up. And you need to say, when you say you're going to be on time, make sure you ask good questions. But never really ask for a job straight up, because you put people you put them in a box, and you should be saying, "I'm seeking information." If you are talking to someone that has a need that you might be able to help, you can also offer up, "Hey, I checked your website out. I know you're just starting. I have some tips for you. I'm willing to help you with that." If you actually give as much as you ask for, it all comes full circle. Right. So that's the other thing I ask students to do, is make sure when they're asking for help to also offer up something. But you need to be carefully listening and actively watching to know what that might be. So when they leave my class, I tell them, "You're ready." They say, "Oh, we hear it's a good class, but it's hard." I said, "No, I'm giving you all the skills you need to go through life, because if you live long enough, you'll be laid off." Okay. And when we talk about networking, they'll say, "I don't know anybody." I said, "Oh, please. Here's the reason I say that." I said, "I'm going to give some examples. So when you really want something badly, you move heaven and earth. So if your favorite football team is coming to town to play and tickets are sold out, you'll work the phones until you find a ticket."
That's right.
I said, and women are absolutely. And I always say, women, "Oh, who did your hair? Who did your nails?" I said, we network all the time.
All the time.
But we need to convert that into helping us get further in our career. And I say to them, the fear of rejection is real, but what's the worst thing that could happen? They could say no, or they can say, "I'm glad to help." But the big thing that I feel that really needs to happen after you've met with someone, they've been helpful to you, is to come back full circle and say to them, "I met with Kyle," or "I met with Glenda, and here's what happened." What people tend to do is gather the information, make the connection, and never circle back to the originator, so that you would then know where they are should you hear of something else. So I'm a big networker. I talk to anybody about anything. On my LinkedIn, I have lots of different connections. I don't put myself in a box and only talk to people that do what I do, because if somebody needs a resource, I can drill down into my connections and refer them to someone. So I teach people the art of being proactive, and also using your connections, and also offering up something so that people see you as a resource, not necessarily somebody who's always looking for something.